Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother and sister, welcome back to Islamic Notes channel. Is it true that Neil Armstrong heard the call to prayer on the moon and converted to Islam? The issue of American astronaut Neil Armstrong hearing the call to prayer on the moon and then becoming a Muslim has spread everywhere. The issue has grown since the early 1980s, perhaps even until now. Armstrong is also said to have visited several Islamic holy sites, including a mosque in Turkey that Malcolm X, a Muslim figure from the United States, US, had visited. Many people are talking and looking for the truth of the rumor that Armstrong became a Muslim after hearing the call to prayer on the moon. Not a few also believe the rumor and spread it to others. In a biography of Neil Armstrong by James R. Hansen entitled First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong, it is mentioned that the rumor about Armstrong converting to Islam after hearing the call to prayer is so strong in Muslim society. It is also said that the story is repeated many times throughout the Muslim world. So is it true that Neil Armstrong converted to Islam after hearing the call to prayer when he arrived on the moon? Neil Armstrong is said to have successfully landed and set foot on the moon. He was the first person to set foot on the moon. However, there are those who deny it and say it is just US propaganda. However, we will not discuss that debate. An American media, CBS News, released a report on Friday, July 18, 2014, about 11 myths about Neil Armstrong. According to the media, the issue of hearing the call to prayer while on the moon and converting to Islam was number 10 myths about Neil Armstrong. There, Armstrong clearly stated that he never heard the call to prayer while on the moon and never thought about converting to Islam. In the mid-1980s, the US government also reacted to the rumors. At that time, the US State Department helped Armstrong organize a teleconference with journalists in the Middle East. The goal was to clear up the rumors. It should be noted that at that time, the spread of information from one region to another was not as fast and easy as it is today. It took extra effort and quite a long time to spread information. Not only that, the US State Department also sent a message to all its embassies and consulates in countries with Muslim majorities. One of the messages was that Neil Armstrong did not convert to Islam and had no plans or desires to visit places abroad to participate in Islamic religious activities. The letter emphasized that the information about Armstrong's conversion was not true. Interestingly, those who had been informed of the rumor's untruth created a new rumor. Yes, they then considered that the US did not accept that its hero was known as a Muslim. According to them, at the request of the US, Neil Armstrong denied his religion in front of the public. Until now, there are quite a few Muslims who have believed the hoax that Armstrong converted to Islam after hearing the call to prayer in that month. Neil Armstrong, along with his two colleagues, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, Armstrong is said to have successfully landed on the moon. As the leader of the Apollo 11 mission, Armstrong became the first human to set foot on the moon. This event occurred 50 years ago, precisely on July 20th, 1969. Armstrong himself died on August 22, 2012, at the age of 82 years. Is Neil Armstrong really a convert? In the 90s, there was a rumor that Neil Armstrong was a convert to Islam. Was this rumor true or just a hoax? What are the implications for someone who believes in things that are not necessarily true? How does it relate to our faith? Repenting after hearing the call to prayer. Rumors circulating among Muslims. Neil Armstrong visited the Middle East a few years after the Apollo mission. At that time, he heard the call to prayer. He said he heard the same sound when he was on the moon. At that time, Neil Armstrong was a convert. However, the truth of this rumor is still questionable. Quran on the moon. At that time, the United States government wanted to cover up the news. But the rumor went viral and even spread that Neil immigrated to Lebanon. There are also rumors about the Apollo 11 footage. Neil Armstrong and other astronauts reported seeing something. They saw what looked like an open book. Could they have seen the Quran? Again, this is just a rumor. The sound of Adhan on the moon. Many theories say that sound cannot travel on the moon because of the vacuum. If you could hear the call to prayer on the moon, what would it sound like? How could Neil Armstrong hear the call to prayer on the moon while wearing an astronaut suit? Just hoax and rumor. This surprised many, especially the U.S. Embassy and Consulate. He said he did not want to harm anyone and did not want to show disrespect or offend any religion. When interviewed by Malaysian astronaut Zaid Zahari, Neil said that the news was inaccurate. Neil politely but firmly denied that he was not a convert and had never participated in religious activities. After Neil Armstrong died in 2012, this news was revived and circulated on social media. Myths about Neil Armstrong. Hearing the azan on the moon and changing religion. The issue of converting religions is apparently not only interesting for today's netizens. The issue of converting religions once accompanied the first human to set foot on the moon, Neil Armstrong. It turns out that the issue is not only spread in Indonesia, but has become a kind of myth everywhere. The United States, U.S. mass media, CBS News, even placed the issue of converting religion as myth number 10 about Neil Armstrong. Not a few world citizens type Neil Armstrong and Islam in the Google search box. The Washington Post even published an article discussing the rumor that Neil Armstrong converted to Islam. The writer is a lawyer and policy analyst named Sally Tyler. Once in Yogyakarta in the 90s, Sally met a Somali trader who bought sarongs in Indonesia, named Abdullah. When Sally considered the sound of the call to prayer in Yogyakarta to be sung melodiously, Abdullah then asked Sally whether it was true that Neil Armstrong also heard the call to prayer on the moon there. The myth spread in the pre-Android, pre-social media era, when most people didn't know how to spell hoax correctly. It turns out that the issue of converting to Islam had made the U.S. government react. All has been explained in the biography by James R. Hansen entitled First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong. On page 785, it is explained that the rumor of Neil Armstrong converting to Islam was already so deeply embedded. The story is repeated throughout the Muslim world that as Armstrong and Aldrin, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, walked on the moon, they heard singing in a strange language they did not understand. Later, after they returned to Earth, Armstrong realized that what they had heard on the lunar surface was the adhan, the Muslim call to prayer, Hansen wrote in the book. The rumor said Armstrong later moved to Lebanon and visited Islamic holy sites, including a mosque in Turkey where Malcolm X, an American Muslim figure, had prayed. The rumor continued to spread in the early 1980s. Armstrong felt the need to clarify. It turned out that not only Armstrong, but also the U.S. government felt the need to react to the rumor. In March 1983, the U.S. State Department sent a message to all its embassies and consulates in Muslim-populated countries. Here is the letter. 1. Former astronaut Neil Armstrong, now living in private, has been the subject of press reports in Egypt, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and perhaps elsewhere, alleging that he converted to Islam during his 1969 moon landing. As a result of these reports, Armstrong has received numerous communications from individuals and religious organizations, and an inquiry form from at least one government about his possible participation in Islamic activities. 2. Emphasizing his strong desire not to offend anyone or show disrespect to any religion, Armstrong has informed the department that reports of his conversion are false. 3. If there are any questions about this, Armstrong asks that those who ask be politely but reassuringly answered that he has not converted to Islam and has no plans or desires to travel to places abroad to participate in Islamic religious activities. However, the clarification from the U.S. State Department was not strong enough to stem the rumor. In fact, the rumor grew into a new story. The next rumor told when Apollo 11 found that the Earth was emitting light, which was true. The source of the light turned out to be the Kaaba in Mecca, and that was proof that Mecca was the center of the world. Neil Armstrong received invitations from Muslim countries for him to attend Islamic events. The invitations often reached Armstrong in the 80s. Armstrong felt that it was time for him to speak directly, no longer through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We got a barrage of questions about this, mostly from the Muslim world, but also from the non-Muslim world. The latter asked me, "This can't be right, can it?" So we decided we needed an official event that journalists could access, Neil said in the book. We asked the State Department for help again, this time to assist in organizing a telephone press conference in Cairo, Egypt, where many journalists from the Middle East could ask me questions and get my answers, Neil said. It turned out that Armstrong's efforts were unable to stem the spread of the rumors. In fact, those who had been informed that the issue of Armstrong's conversion was a hoax then assumed that the U.S. government did not want its national hero to be known as a Muslim. The U.S. was considered to want Armstrong to deny his religion in public. Once at a Phi Delta Theta meeting at Purdue University, USA, a Middle Eastern professor's son told me that his father had told him that Neil Armstrong had converted. The son then asked if the news was true or not. I told him, of course it wasn't true. I can tell he thought I was lying to him. He didn't believe me. He was convinced that I would lie if I told him about it, Armstrong said. Armstrong realized that he was a famous person, considered a hero, and not everyone could be like him, namely being the first human to step on the moon. Because he was so rare in this world, Armstrong had become a myth. It was only natural that many groups wanted to embrace him and claim him as one of their members. Many people who were not known to Armstrong also claimed to be his distant relatives. So what was Armstrong's religion? Reported by The Telegraph, the man born on August 5, 1930, stated that he did not embrace a particular religion, even though he was born to religious parents. They allowed me to pursue what I wanted. They didn't try to dictate to me what I should do or where I should go, said Armstrong.